So basically what we want to do is, let's say we have a minimum number of 30 and a maximum number of 60. We want to pick any random number from this range of numbers between 30 and 60. To do that, let's take a little bit longer route and start by writing a function that will take a max number and simply console log it. So here's that function, log max num, and it will take the property of max and console log max. Okay, that's simple enough. So let's just test drive it quickly. And indeed, we are getting a 5 right here. So let's continue writing our implementation. The next step, we would like to perhaps return a number in range. Basically, we are going to rewrite the dice function that I've shown you in a previous video. So function log rand num up to max. And here we're going to have, again, the max property. And we're just going to console log math.floor math.random times the value of this max property plus 1. And now when I call log rand and give it a number of 5, it's going to randomly show one of those numbers. So that pretty much works. But of course, that's only a beginning for our task. And this is where things, well, I need to kind of complicate things a little bit, but that's just because the aim or the goal here is for you to gain deeper understanding into how this function that we're going to end up with works. So here it is. Basically, I have a question. What's the result of flooring the min and max params? So let's say I have a function. I'm going to name it floor difference of max and min, because basically I want to subtract min from max. And now I can first start by logging the range amount. What does that exactly mean? Well, I'm going to set the variable of calc to max minus min. And that's going to give me the kind of like the slide or the range, the amount of the range. So I'm going to console log the value of calc. And now let's invoke this function, floor difference of max and min. And let's pass 1 and 3 here. And the range is 2 numbers. So we are including, let's say, number 1, number 2, and then 3 is out of limits, out of bounds. Okay, so now we have the range amount figured out. The next thing that I want to do is generate a random whole number inside the range. So generate a random whole number inside the range. Okay, so to understand what I'm doing here, I first need to set some boundaries. So we know that math.random can result in a 0 or 0.99, etc. So let's assign kind of like the boundaries of these values. So val 0 is going to be basically 0 times 2, with 2 being the difference between max and min. Okay, so now I'm hard coding these values, which is not really a good practice, but it is good to kind of test out what we're doing. I'm naming this val 001 because here I'm multiplying 0.01 with the difference of max and min, which is in this case 2. And finally, let val 099 is equal to 0.99 times 2. Okay, so I'm kind of setting the extremes of my range here. And now I can console.log. And here I'm going to use backticks for template literals syntax. So here I'm passing in val 0. Next, I'm passing in val 001 and val 099. So here I have the results of this operation, and I can see the results are 0, 0.02, and 1.98. Okay, so now I have a simple question that I want to test out, and that question is, what is the math.floor of each of the above? And to calculate that, well, I can simply do console.log and then math.floor and run math.floor on these hard-coded values. So for val 0, the math.floor is going to be 0. For val 001, the math.floor is still going to be a 0. And for val 099, the math.floor is going to be a 1. Okay, so this is all expected, but it's crucial to understand what's going to happen in the next step. Well, basically, first, what I want to do is I want to simplify in the next function by abstracting the functionality from the floor difference of max and min function. So here I'm just going to say abstract away the above code. And here I'm going to say function random num in range log min and max. And I can console.log math.floor math.random. And here I'm multiplying it with what? I'm multiplying it with with max minus min. Okay, so, and here finally I'm also going to add a +1. Okay, so you should be familiar with how this works if you've been following previous videos. Basically, I'm running math.random and I'm multiplying this with max minus min, and then I'm flooring everything. But to avoid the odd situation where I would have a 0 as a result of math.random call, 0 multiplied by anything is a 0, so I'm adding a +1 to make sure that the math.floor's value is at least a 1. And let's now run the function. So random num in range log, and I'm choosing two numbers, 1 and 3. And here, let's see what I'm getting. So I'm getting 1 or 2 whenever I run the function, which is kind of expected. Now, let's also try to run it again. This time I'm going to do random num in range log, but I'm going to give it a 4 and a 6, for example. So what's going to happen now? The value is going to show up here, right here, where there's a 1 now. And this looks a bit confusing, but actually it's really pointing out the error. So what this code does, what this function does currently, regardless of what values I pass as min and max parameters, both functions are returning either a 1 or a 2. So behind the comma, the value that Quokka is showing here is actually the result of this function call, and this value after the comma is the result of this function call. So it doesn't matter how many times I invoke it, it's always going to be either a 1 or a 2. This means that we need to improve our function. So the way to improve it is basically we need to slide the range, so to say. So the range is between 4 and 6. But right now, the way that our functionality or our logic works, it's not taking into account that our range of numbers starts from the number 4. So let's write another function. And this function I'm going to name, let's say, function. Okay, let's first describe it. So we're going to name it slide the range to start randomizing from min number instead of from 0. Okay, or 1, whatever. So function rand num from range, and it's taking the min and max values, and we're console logging what? Well, we're going to console log the result of flooring something, and that something is going to be math.random times max minus min, and then finally we're going to plus 1 this, and to make sure that the value is, I guess, moved or slid over to the min of the range, to the min value of the range, we're going to add min to it. So pretty much what's going to happen is the following. We're going to get our random value multiplied by the difference in between max and min, add plus 1 to avoid the 0 value, and then finally we're going to floor this entire thing, but we're also going to add the value of the min parameter to make sure that that value is now slid to the starting point of the range. Okay, so let's make sure that our logic makes sense. So here I'm going to basically repeat these two calls. So the first one is going to be pick random from range 1 and 3. The next one is going to be pick random from range 4 and 6. And this time, indeed, we are getting numbers that we were kind of expecting. So we are getting either a 2 or a 3. And here we are getting either a 6 or a 5. So we're not including the first value. Finally, we can do just maybe some greater range of, let's say, 30 to 60. And this time, let's also just comment these two lines out, not to be confused. So this time, pay attention to line 42. When I run it like this, I'm getting the values between 30 and 60. And that's pretty much how you can write a function that picks a random number from a range of numbers.